council meeting. You have your notes in front of you. So at this time, I will call the city council meeting to order Thursday, July the 16th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Invocation will be conducted by Mr. Harry Comproot, State Chaplain, Disabled American Veterans. He will give the invocation and we will say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Lord, I pray for the leaders of Russellville, thanking them for their service to the community. And Father, during these times of hardship and troubles going on, Father, just give them a real discernment in how to lead and how to direct. And I pray for the guidance and direction in the discussions and the business at hand, and that the decisions made here tonight are done in the best interest of the community. That unity and respect for one another always prevail. I ask for your hand of protection upon the men and women serving in our fire and police departments, and be with each family serving in our militaries around the world. Be with the mayor as he is tasked with providing leadership to the community. I ask each and everything in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. At this time, I'd like to ask the city clerk, Ms. Skelton, to do roll call.
Ms. Caruth. Present. Mr. Harris.
Here.
Mr. Tripp.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Harrell.
Here.
Mr. Westcott.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mayor Harris.
Here.
Mr. Smith. Here. Myself, you have a quorum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Within your packet, you do have the minutes from the June 15th and June 18th and June 23rd meeting. What is the pleasure of the council in relation to these meetings?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Brown. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, Ms. Johnson, we provide the financial report.
General fund revenues for June were $1,300,162, which was 0.53% below year-to-date projections. Tax receipts were $813,327. Franchise fees and permits were $344,994. We received Energy's quarterly payment of franchise fees in the amount of $316,232. Tax revenue comparison, if you look at current year-to-date over prior year for the same time period, there's an increase over prior year for city taxes of 2% and county is 6%. And when you're comparing to budget, the actual year-to-date for the city was $2,238,385 compared to the budget of $2,200,000. For county taxes, we've received $2,563,546 compared to budget of $2,475,000. So there's a year-to-date increase over budget for city of 2% and county is 4%. June expenditures for the general fund were $1,020,993, which is 6.44% below year-to-date projections. There was $304,285 more received than spent, and this again is due to the receipt of Energy's quarterly franchise fee payment. Street fund revenues for June were $791,905, which came from new sales tax of $566,879, state turnback and ad valorem tax of $141,075, half-cent road sales tax of $53,133, interest of $28,324, other $2,494. Street operating revenue is 4.23% above year-to-date projections. June operation expenditures for the street fund were $146,835, which is 10.32% below year-to-date projections. The half-cent sales tax spending was $166,450 for the interstate lighting project, and sales tax improvement spending was $140,107 for Englewood drainage maintenance and sidewalks. June revenues for the economic development funds was $49,216. Sales tax made up $44,797, and interest was $4,419. In June, we spent $1,400, and that was for bush hogging the industrial park property. The balance of the various economic development funds as of June 30th, 2020, the 2003 fund was $1,508,313.79. The 2007 fund was $1,032,468.13, and the 2014 fund was $1,092,488.99. June revenues for the capital asset fund was $217,741. There was an airport grant receipt of $92,419, new sales tax receipts of $89,595, parks $15,487, and interest of $1,240. June expenditures were $191,913. The airport grant runway lights spending was $101,431. City Corp, we spent $89,595. There was a software upgrade that was $780, and IBP solar lights project, we spent $107. Any questions?
Ms. Johnson, for the benefit of the council, can you give them a briefing on where we stand financially in relation to the issues associated with the COVID and where we think we'll end up at the end of the year based upon your knowledge at this time?
At this time, we're not seeing any withdrawal of sales tax revenues. They're still falling above what we have budgeted, and that trend is continuing. Now, there is a piece that is concerning me, and that is the state has reduced the budget for turnback, which is how we fund the street operation expenditures. They've reduced it, and they say between 5 and 15%. Which, if it's 15%, that's $102,000, and that would be over 4 quarters, 2 of which would be in this fiscal year. So we're watching that pretty closely, and we've already held back on that budget by 10% at this time, so we're watching it. They have had an upturn at the end of the year. Remember the governor talking about a $500-something million downfall that they were expecting to have happen, and so they were cutting way back on their budgets. Well, it only ended up being $200 million, so they had a surplus at the end of the year. So I'm hoping that impacted these turnback funds, but that's the only area where I'm really concerned at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Johnson. On the mayor's report, so there's been a lot of discussion in the community about the COVID, and it's become a rather heated debate in the community and across the nation. And one of the things that I've had an opportunity to visit with our medical providers in our community, including Ms. Dr. Vicki Henderson, and she's been on top of this issue since day one for St. Mary's and for our community. She's been a big advocate and a big confidant for me in trying to guide me through this. A couple of days ago, I asked her if she would be willing to come before the council and, from a physician's perspective, provide what we're seeing in our community and our state in relation to COVID-19, and she's agreed to do that and graciously agreed to do that, and I appreciate it. So, Dr. Henderson, if you would step up to the podium, we'd love to hear from you.
Mayor, while she's going up to the podium, I just was curious, are we no longer live streaming our meetings? Because I'm not finding the live stream available.
Lynn, can you address that? We should be live streaming.
Neither, the Finance Committee was not live streamed, and so far, this. Okay, the city council meeting is not being live streamed then.
I'm sorry, we'll give us 1 minute, see if we can get this resolved. Because I want the community to hear what you have to say.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I want the community to hear what you have to say, so I'd like for the live streaming to be working before you start presenting, Dr.
Okay.
Henderson.
So do I-
You can do your dance routine, Vicki, if you can go ahead and do your dance routine while we're waiting.
Okay. I couldn't connect my computer to Wi-Fi, so I had some graphs I'd like to show if we get a chance. But first of all, I just appreciate the
But
mayor.
give us one more
You
second.
do want me to
Doc.
wait?
Yeah,
Okay.
give us one.
Rick, tell me to go.
He's confusing the whole issue.
Oh, I can do my dance?
Okay, you're good. And they can plug your computer into the system. Here she goes.
Or give me a Wi-Fi password, at least.
I don't know if they can do that or not.
It says no open internet. Do you have, can I just get online? I can show you a graph online if you can just use your computer. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'm not sure where he is tonight.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, what? I don't hear very well. Yeah. Yeah, just leave it there until I'm ready, if you don't mind. Yeah. I can't hear in this room.
I do apologize for the delay, but this is pretty important. I'd like for, give a few more minutes to see if we can get this going.
Yeah.
I don't think we have a very long agenda tonight, so I don't think it'll keep us too long.
They're still trying.
That's fine.
I think they're trying.
Not in a hurry. No, I'm good, thank
If
you.
not, we just continue with what you got. You got it on your phone? You got it on your phone?
I can. With that.
Okay, so what's going on? We've got a feed to the public access channel at this time. We do indicate it is live streaming, but evidently it is not. We are recording this so we can put it online after the meeting is concluded if we can't get it resolved. So we'll go ahead and start and continue on with the meeting. Thank you for waiting. Dr. Henderson, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. I just want to make a couple of assumptions before I get started. I think that, number one, everybody wants to do the right thing. I think, number two, a lot of people are confused about what the right thing is. But this is called the novel coronavirus, and if you think about it, the word novel means new. That means we've never seen this before, we've never seen anything like it before. Nobody knew what it was, nobody knew how it was spread, nobody knew how to treat it, nobody knew how to prevent it. And there was literally no one who was an expert on the coronavirus because it was novel. But we did not doubt the seriousness of the pandemic. I'd like to tell you a story because I think sometimes stories are better at illustrating points. But in 2003, I went on a ski trip with my family, and we got stuck in a blizzard in Kansas. And I knew there was a blizzard because I had a front row seat to the blizzard. Everywhere I looked, there was white snow. We were stuck in a hotel room for about 2 days in the middle of Kansas. And what happened is the Iraq War broke out. And I knew that there was an Iraqi war because I had a front row seat, because the media embedded journalists and put them actually on the front lines, and we could see it with our own 2 eyes. About a month before that ski trip, the federal government passed a law known as the Health Information Privacy Protection Act. Because of that, many of you do not have a front row seat to what's going on. Many of the physicians in the community and around the country, they don't have a front row seat to what's going on. But I can tell you, I have a front row seat to what's going on. But because of HIPAA, we cannot talk a lot about what's going on. And so a lot of the medical community has been a little bit silent on this. I do have a letter that our docs that take care of our COVID patients have signed, saying that they support all of the measures that the experts agree on, and that is social distancing, rigorous hand washing, and face coverings for everyone. Like I said, when this started, there were no experts. But suddenly everybody got their Google MD and their Facebook expertise certificate, and COVID doctors began to share their information on YouTube, and a lot of misinformation has been spread, and people literally do not know what to believe. People that don't know the difference between sensitivity and specificity and polymerase chain reactions and antibody test. It's very complicated, and you commonly hear the experts don't agree. That's not true. The experts do agree. Just remember, not everybody's an expert. Do we know everything? Absolutely not. Do we change the recommendations as we learn? Of course we do. As we learn more, we're going to continue to change it. But I'll tell you this, flattening the curve made a huge difference. It made a huge difference. Nobody had enough PPE. Nobody knew how to use PPE. Nobody knew where we were going to put these patients, how we were going to isolate them from other places, how we were going to make our hospitals safe. And flattening the curve made a huge difference. And then everything let up, and we began to see a huge spike. We have to continue to keep that curve flat, or we will overwhelm the healthcare system in Arkansas. I brought a graph or a map that I'd like to pass out and make available to the council and anybody else that wants it. I don't know how well anybody else can see this, but this is a picture of the hospital availability in Arkansas. And all of these purple counties have no hospital whatsoever. All of the light counties, the white counties, have only a critical access hospital. So the counties in the darker blue and the green are the only counties that actually have a full service hospital in the state of Arkansas. So it doesn't take much to overwhelm a rural state like Arkansas. I spoke to the CEO of UAMS today, and he said their COVID unit is full. I'm pretty sure that at least part of this week, not their COVID unit is full, I'm sorry, their ICU is full. Baptist ICU is full. We don't have a lot of resources. If you look at the number of hospital beds and the number of ICU beds and the number of ventilators, that doesn't tell the full story because we also have to have staff. And if the staff start to get sick, then we have less and less staff. I know that a lot of people think that masks are uncomfortable. So is a motorcycle helmet, and so is a seat belt, and so is a bicycle helmet. People wear those. They wear those to protect themselves. We wear masks to protect other people. They protect us somewhat, but they definitely protect other people. I cannot give you specific numbers as far as what's going on at the hospital because of HIPAA, but I can share some numbers that are available public data. This is what happened today in Arkansas. We added 817 cumulative cases. That made our active case number go up by 139. One thing I want to point out about the active case number, that's the number that we know about. That's not the number of cases in the area. That's the number that have been tested and are positive. 12 new hospitalized people and 7 new ventilator patients, and 6 new deaths in the state of Arkansas. If we continue to do that every day, and this was the 3rd single highest day of a new jump in increase in cases, then we're not going to have the resources that we need. I'd like to give you some public data that's available and see if the graph will help. This is available to anyone. And a lot of times people wonder, what numbers should they be looking at? Personally, I think the most telling number is the number of hospitalizations, because a lot of people will say, well, we're seeing more cases because we're doing more testing. More testing does not increase your hospitalizations. A lot of people are saying the death rate's going down, and fortunately, we do have treatments now. We have convalescent plasma, we have remdesivir, we're starting to use dexamethasone, we have other things that we can do. So we are seeing the death rate go down, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some long-term sequelae that are happening that perhaps we don't even know about yet. This is the statewide hospitalization data to date. The orange represents all the cases of people that are in the hospital since early May. The green represents people that are on ventilators. Does that number impress you? It certainly does me. The percent of patients that are on ventilators has gone down. Personally, I believe this is because people are coming to the hospital sooner. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people waited till they were critically ill before they came, and if they come sooner, there's more that we can do. This is the percent of ICU beds in the state of Arkansas that are full. Most of the bigger hospitals in Little Rock are 100% full, but this is the total number of ICU beds in the entire state that are full. Looks like it's about 85%. I'm sure you've seen the predictions from UAMS that if we don't do something different, that the numbers are going to go way up. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better unless we do something. And so my ask of the community is that everyone will do their part, listen to the experts who are truly experts, do the social distancing, wear a mask, wash your hands, don't touch your face. And if you're in a high-risk situation, you also need to wear eye protection. Thank you for letting me address you. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those.
Any questions, Dr. Henderson? Thank you, Dr. Henderson. I appreciate you coming in, and I appreciate the letter that the doctors have signed, and I'd like to get a copy of that so we can post it on the city website so the community can see how seriously these doctors take it. I will add this. My daughter is a 4th-year med student, and she's working one of her rotations at St. Mary's, and at this time she's assigned to the COVID unit, and she won't tell me what's going on there because she can't because of HIPAA laws, but she came in, and we have a really good relationship, and we joke and banter a lot, and she came in 2 days ago, and she looked at me in the eye, and she handed me an N95 mask, and she said, "Wear this. Wear this." That's what she's seeing at the hospital, and that's how seriously she's taking it. That she wants her dad to wear that N95 mask. So if you just talk to these medical providers that are in there working this, you get a different perspective on things. So thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we do have a department report from Tanessa. Tanessa is not here tonight, but you do have the report in your packet there. If you have any questions, I'm not sure I can answer them. We certainly would be glad to take those at this time. If not, we'll move on. Any questions? Seeing none, we will move on to committee reports. Personnel Committee. Personnel Committee, you have anything this evening?
Tonight, sir.
Thank you, Rick. And at this time, we'll go to the Finance Committee and turn the floor back over to Mr. Westcott.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. From last week's Finance meeting, we'll begin with that. Item number 1 is consideration for approval for the June 2020 expenses for the Arkansas Valley Alliance in the amount of $7,311.95. And we present that as a motion to adopt.
I have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 2 is consideration for approval for the second quarter expenses for the Boys and Girls Club in the amount of $15,607.67, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
I have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 3 is consideration for the approval for the second quarter expenses for the Main Street Russellville in the amount of $15,000, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
I have a motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 4 is an appropriation from the general fund rollover balance in the sum of $17,313.75 to be used for the purchase of the Civic Rec software for the Parks and Rec Department at the Aquatic Center, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 5 is an appropriation from the general fund year-end rollover balance, the sum of $38,900.80 to be used for the purchase of 2 batwing mowers, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Motion, discussion.
Yes. The request before us is for 2 John Deere branded Frontier Flex Swing 15-foot mowers. Total price, and I assume, is this total price before tax? Because there was no tax on this quote that was presented to us.
There won't be any tax on that.
Okay. Total price, $38,900. I made a couple of phone calls. Actually, a citizen called me and was asking me about this particular request. I made a couple of phone calls. One was to a local dealer here who deals in a different brand. It turns out that the Woods Company manufactures the Frontier mowers that are branded under the John Deere name, painted green, but it's the same mower. The Woods Company is the parent company that makes this particular model. The other local vendor that I spoke with gave me a quote to the city, $12,700 each, equals $25,400. So that phone call saved the taxpayers $13,500. Mr. Thomas, from our conversation earlier today, are you prepared to have any kind of modifications to this appropriation request?
Yes. The quote that you got from him earlier today was not a finish mower. So I got the quote from him on a finish mower.
Mr. Thomas, could you tell us who him is?
This would be River Valley Tractor, the Kubota dealership here in town. And that quote did come in a little under the quote from John Deere, so I'd like to revise that quote to take the quote from River Valley Tractor.
What was that amount?
The amount was $33,940. That's a savings of $4,960 from the other quote.
Okay. And I don't know how much of a hurry you are on this. I also called the John Deere dealer in Harrison and asked about this identical model, your model FM2115R Flex Wing. The quote from John Deere in Harrison was $15,600 apiece, equals $31,200. So I can understand dealing locally, and it's not that I'm against spending a little bit more to deal locally, but per the John Deere dealer in Harrison, he said, Mr. Westcott, and he knew that I was calling on behalf, or to get a price for the city. He said, the Woods brand, fine mower, they're identical. Woods makes the Frontier mower. So all of that, 2 phone calls, 10 minutes. So what is the amount of your request this evening?
It's $33,940 even. That's for 2 of them.
Correct.
So $16,970 for the single unit.
So is there a motion associated with this discussion? Yes?
And that's through the state contract bid also, through the Woods Company, through River Valley Tractor.
So, okay. So the request is for $33,940.
That's the change?
Yeah, that's the change from what you previously had, yes, sir.
And we present that as a motion to adopt. 33,940, and that keeps it local. Do you need an amendment?
Point of order question also.
If it's amended, it's going to have to be voted on. That's by full council. Yes.
Okay.
Because it's come out as one thing and now it's being changed.
Okay.
Mayor, I have a point of order question too, whenever you want to work that in. So it's my understanding that the original deal, $38,980, was a state contracted deal, so it didn't have to go through the bidding process we do. What about this revised or this other one for the $33,940? Is that
Yes.
is that
Yes,
also excluded?
It's through the state contract, yep.
Okay, thank you.
So you have a motion, Mr. Westcott?
Yes, Mayor, my motion is to amend this appropriation ordinance by changing the amount from $38,900.80 to $33,940 even.
Second.
So I do have a motion, and I have a second from Mr. Keller. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
So now the committee makes a motion to adopt item number 5.
I have a motion to adopt item number 5 from the, do I have a second?
Second.
Well, that comes from the committee.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6 is an appropriation from the Municipal Airport 2020 budget, which is a return to the City General Fund in the amount of $69,000, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Motion, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7 is an appropriation, or request rather, for appropriation from the Capital Asset Fund, the sum of $21,231.02 to replace 3 scoreboards for Hickey Park on fields number 2, 3, and 4 with clocks, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Motion, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 8 is consideration of a resolution authorizing a public hearing to be held at the August City Council meeting scheduled for Thursday, August 20th, for the purpose of discussing a proposed $6 million bond issuance to fund water and wastewater capital projects submitted by Mr. Mallett on behalf of Citicorp, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Motion, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
From our finance meeting this evening, we have one item, which is an appropriation from the general fund year-end rollover balance, the sum of $5,900 to be used for a portion of the community fireworks display that was held on July 4, and we present that as a motion to adopt.
Have a motion on item 2, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I believe that to be the last item on our agenda.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Westcott. Moving on now to council items. Unfinished old business number 1, consideration of an ordinance prohibiting retail sale of recreational marijuana in the city of Russellville. This is the second of 3 readings for this particular audience, for this particular ordinance. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, if we, and this is a question for Mr. Smith, how can we involve, if somebody wants to have any discussion in this, what's the procedure to have discussion in this before or after a possible, suspending the rules and reading?
Well, you'd almost have to do a referral to informal discussion because this is a second reading, there won't be a vote, therefore there won't be any debate. And based on, I'm assuming that you're going to suspend the rules for just the second of 3 readings. And so when you suspend the rules, there's no debate in the suspension of the rules. And since it's the second of 3 readings, we'll go to next month. So there won't be anything unless you make some type of referral of informal consideration.
Does it matter when, now or after?
You can do it now for that motion, yes, and just.
Mayor, I make the referral for informal discussion as Mr. Smith. I just have one question I want to ask. And
Okay,
so
I have a
make that
motion for informal discussion,
Still gonna need a full vote.
and do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Keller. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Tripp.
Mr. Smith, if I may, I've not asked you about this ahead of time, but, do you have a strong opinion one way or the other about this ordinance, if it's passed by the council? Does it subject us to being sued or to a bad position, or, if you don't care, I'm looking for your advice or opinion on this, and not necessarily tonight, but at least by next month.
I can give it tonight if you want it.
Okay?
I've looked at this the last few days, actually, and I believe that this ordinance, if passed at this point in time, you've got to understand this is marijuana sales are illegal. Basically, this ordinance, the best fit I can see, it violate the analogous state law that already covers the subject is possession of marijuana with the intent to deliver to another person, already criminalized. The state law mandates that ordinances, you can criminalize a misdemeanor in the state, with the caveat being that the penalties cannot be less severe than what the state law requires. With the state law on possession with intent to deliver or actual delivery, all of those criminal penalties include jail time. By state law, an ordinance cannot include jail time. Therefore, this law would be less severe than the criminal analog, which was possession by intent to deliver, which is the law in effect. Based upon that, I believe that the state law would, I believe that this ordinance would be in conflict with the state law because of the less severe penalties and would be invalid. And if it was passed and on the books, if somebody wanted to challenge it, then they could file a declaratory action. And I think a court would rule that it's invalid based upon the less severe penalties, based upon, I think it's 1455-502, I think, which mandates that they cannot be less severe than the state law.
That's right, Mr. Smith, on section 10, it says nothing in this ordinance is intended to conflict with state law. Whenever a provision of this ordinance conflicts with state law, the state law provision shall apply. Would that not negate your previous discussion?
No, because you still have this in effect, and I mean that was my best attempt to try and make it not conflict with anything, but I think if this law was challenged in court, it would conflict with, I think, the possession with intent to deliver, which is what retail marijuana sales would be. It's possessing marijuana with the intent to deliver to another person through sales. And of course, based on the assumption that there would be a state recreational marijuana passed and that this would somehow allow the city to maintain that to be illegal should such an amendment pass. But I think it would be found to be invalid because I think it is in a conflict based upon my reading of the criminal law and then based upon the operation of how ordinances are supposed to be if you do criminalize something under an ordinance and there's a state law in place that it's supposed to have the same, it cannot have minimum penalties minimum than the state law, and this would.
Mr. Harris?
Trey basically answered my question.
Thank you.
It's a little bit convoluted for me because it's an ordinance prohibiting just the retail sale of it, and on the part of the retailer being in possession of it, he answered my question.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, when I asked you to help write this up, it was with the understanding that we would not be within conflict with state law. So I'm depending on what you'd written up originally, but I don't know why it changed now. So the purpose of the ordinance was just to create an opportunity for us to protect the citizens of Russellville if they didn't want it, because it's kind of like your house. If you've got the door closed, you get to open up to let the people in that you want in. And so I thought this was a way of us controlling if that can come or not. So instead of allowing the state to maybe pass it and then all of a sudden they show up, we control who gets to show up. You don't let everybody in your house. You only let those that you invite into your house. And so I thought that this was a good way of protecting Russellville from this, and if the citizens decide they want that, that's fine. We issue the invitation instead of asking them to leave.
Well, I think you wanted this ordinance, I don't think you really wanted to, you just wanted me to draw it up, and I did. I don't think I ever said that this ordinance, if passed, would somehow do the things that you said it did, because I think what you're doing is, or what you're asking for is an impossibility based upon what a proposed constitutional amendment would do. I did subsequently look, after drawing up, to the two proposed amendments, and both of them clearly wipe out any type of state or local law that's in conflict with those amendments. Thereby, if you pass this ordinance, they would be wiped out upon the operation of the people approving the state law amendment. You don't get to vote anything, you don't get to say anything, it's repealed.
So you're saying when you wrote this up for me, you knew it wasn't going to pass muster?
When I wrote it up, I did not read that. I think when I wrote it up, I did not have the possession of those two amendments at that time. I finally searched for them online and found them around April, and read them, and it clearly that with both of them having repealer clauses in them for local legislation, that I don't see how this could pass and do anything which you seem to indicate that somehow this would trigger an election, which it would not.
None of the amendments that's been proposed have secured the number of signatures that they need at this time. Is that correct?
Yes, they both, I found an article the other day, they've both quit trying to. They've never secured it.
So as it sits right now, if this ordinance is passed, it will not conflict with the state, because it's already against state law now to be in possession of marijuana, correct?
It's already against the law. What you're passing is already against the law. You would just have basically a ordinance similar to a state law, but with lesser penalties.
So if let's just say the state voters do pass it on a state level, how do we know what how it's going to be worded in the law, such as medical marijuana? We didn't know what the penalties provided was at the time as far as being in possession of medical marijuana. Well, you see what I'm...
No.
When the state passed the medical marijuana, it's still against the law to even possess medical marijuana outside of its container in certain places. So we don't know how they're going to legislate the law on if it even does pass. You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of an unknown is more or less is what I'm getting at as far as the ordinance. If we were to pass this ordinance, it's already against the law, okay? And it's to possess it, to smoke it, recreational. So if the state does pass it on a recreational level, we don't know how the legislation is going to write some of the more or less the specifics of it, more or less. I mean, you know, can you smoke it wherever you want to? I mean, if they legalize it, I mean, I don't know what, you kind of see where I'm going with it a little bit, Trey?
I understand it's hard to write an ordinance to guard against a state law or a constitutional amendment which has not been proposed, and that's what I attempted here. I wrote this without the knowledge of the amendments that were in place based upon the request. And I don't see how you can write something that's in the future. You don't know what is going to be proposed in the future, so.
And I've hit on this conversation before in some of the agenda meetings, as far as, you know, you have a wet county and you have a dry county. How do we know that Arkansas may not pass, you know, the vote? We don't know. It could be, if it's passed down the road, it could say, okay, we're going to leave it up to each county to decide whether they sell it in their city or county. I mean, we don't know.
Could it, Mr. Smith, if possible, if you say it's permitted, would it accomplish what Mr. Harrell is wanting to do if the ordinance basically mirrored the state law or state punishment? I mean, could it be done that if that would accomplish what Mr. Harrell's intent was? You know, could it be done, whatever it's lacking, where it's less, could it fulfill that and copy that or be same if that accomplishes his intent?
It can't, because possession with intent to deliver has criminal penalties ranging from Class A misdemeanor to A, B, and C, D felonies. All those carry a minimum of jail times. Ordinances by state law cannot imprison, therefore they are less severe than the state law criminal counterpart. Therefore, it would be invalid.
You said that a while ago, but it didn't fully register, but like it did just then, so thank you.
And then, of course, if you could, both of those proposals I saw subsequent to writing this, the recreational marijuana amendments repeal any type of prior inconsistent state or local laws, meaning they will be repealed. This would be repealed could it pass.
And that would be dependent on that amendment being accepted by the Attorney General, is that correct?
Well, it has to go through the process, yes. Signatures, the Attorney General has to look at it and pass it, and then, of course, the people have to vote on it.
Any further discussion?
But if it's never onto the ballot, then, of course, you have the current state law, which makes this criminal anyway. But if you really want to pass something, you could turn this into some type of resolution which just states that's the city's position about medical or about recreational marijuana, and then it's not a law, it's just a city's position.
Any other discussion? Okay. At this time, we'll consider the informal discussion ceased. What is the pleasure of the council in relation to the second of three readings on item number 1?
Motion to move it to second reading.
I got a motion to perform the second reading. And Mr. Harrell, is that to
Suspend the rules and read
suspend
by
the reading
title only,
requirement,
with short
read by title only,
explanation.
short explanation? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Harris. And all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Harrell?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Carew? Yes. Mr. Tripp?
No.
Mr. Olson?
No.
Mr. Westcott?
No.
Mr. Brown?
No.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Okay, motion to the second reading fails at this time. Item number 2, consideration of an ordinance vacating and abandoning the south 15 feet of East C Street and the east 10 feet of North Detroit Avenue. This is the third and final reading. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules, dispense with the reading requirement, read by title only with a short explanation.
I have a motion to read for the third and final reading. Does I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Brown. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance vacating and abandoning the south 15 feet of West C Street, the east 10 feet of North Detroit Avenue along lots 5 and 6, Block 21 Jail, Shen addition to the city of Russellville, Pup County, Arkansas. Their purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would vacate the aforementioned legal description within the city of Russellville and allow that legal area to revert back to the adjoining property owners.
I move to adopt.
I have a motion to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, consideration of ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas for other purposes. This property is located at 4109 West Main Street from R1 to C2. This is the second of 3 readings. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move to suspend the rules, dispense with the reading requirement, read the second of 3 readings by title only with a short explanation.
Okay, I do have a motion to read for the second of 3 readings. Second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Brown. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
An ordinance rezoning certain realty in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, and for the purposes, this ordinance, if passed, would rezone certain realty located at 4109 West Main Street that is currently zoned R1 and would rezone it to C2.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I do have a question brought up to me by the city clerk relating to Finance Committee agenda item number 1 from this evening associated with the purchase for the glass doors for the Office of the Aquatic Center based upon the city clerk's notes that was approved by the Finance Committee. Is that correct, Mr.? There was a motion to
Did we
table
not table
which
that?
failed, but
Oh, it failed.
the
Okay.
motion to table failed, but the motion to approve was approved, just with the notes that we have at this point in time.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
It was 2-2 when you guys did the motion to table.
I know it was 2-2 on item number 3 about the bid.
Per the notes of the city clerk, it was a motion by Ms. Carew to table, a second by Mr. Westcott. The motion failed. But the motion to approve the appropriation passed.
Okay.
Would you like to present that to the council?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Well, obviously, we present that as a motion to adopt.
Okay, I have a motion, and I apologize for this, council, but we do have a motion
Okay.
from the Finance Committee for the $3,200 to be used for the appropriation of glass doors for the Aquatic Center. So I do have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for that. Okay, let's move on to new business item number 1. Consideration to approve a special use permit to operate an auto sales, repair, and towing business in a C2 located at 3616 East Main Street. This was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. What is the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second by Mr. Keller. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, consideration to approve a special use permit to operate a tire installation store in a C2 located at East Parkway Drive. This was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. Pleasure of the council.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Westcott, second from Mr. Keller. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, this is consideration of an ordinance establishing a review of plumbing plans within the city of Russellville, Arkansas, providing fees for the review, and this is submitted by the Russellville Fire Department. I believe that we have an amendment to this from what was presented in your packet. Before we get into that, do I have a motion?
Motion?
A motion from Mr. Brown. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to do
Second
what?
from Mr. Olson. Discussion?
Motion to do what?
Thank you very much. Roll of order. What is the motion that you made, Mr. Brown? Is that just to provide a reading of the ordinance?
No, sir. Motion to approve.
Okay, we have to read it first.
Okay. Motion to read the order.
I understand we have a motion to read. And then, in this particular case, hold on a second. So we want, the intent is to read this, the intent is to read it one time and pass it tonight. So his motion is to read, so his motion is to read it one time.
Yes.
Okay.
Only one, suspend the rules for one reading only.
Okay. So, just to clarify, make sure we're doing this right, Mr. Brown, the desire of the fire department is to read this one time only for passage with the emergency clause.
read one time only.
First, one time only. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Olson. Okay, discussion.
Mayor, are we reading by title only, or are we reading it in its entirety?
Okay, Mr. Brown, one time only,
One time only, title only?
by title only with short explanation. Thank you. And Mr. Olson, do you have a second? Okay, and now, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Smith.
An ordinance establishing a review of plumbing plans within the city of Russellville, Arkansas, providing fees for the review, prescribing a penalty and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would set up a plumbing plan review for the city within the Russellville Fire Department Fire Buildings and Safety Division that is allowed by ACA Section 17-30-204H, and it would adopt the definitions from that state law and set up a plumbing plan review within the Russellville Fire Department and prescribe penalties for anybody building without any type of review, either from the city or the state.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Brown to approve.
Second.
Second, Mr. Keller. Discussion.
You mentioned something about an amendment?
Mr. Sedian, there's a question about the changes that were made.
Yes, there was a discussion came up today about an applicant. This is nothing new as far as a requirement. What it is, it's the state who has a procedure for reviewing plumbing plans, provide an exception for a local review. And the question came up, is an applicant forced to always go locally? And they're actually not. The law says that this exception does not prohibit an applicant from going ahead and sending their plans to the state for state approval. So we decided to basically just make that inclusive where you don't have to get a local approval if you don't want to, because the law provides for that.
And specifically in Section 5 of the ordinance, it says, it basically says, a plumber installing plumbing in the city shall apply to the city's certified plumbing and natural gas inspectors or other designated official. And it was highlighted that shall apply to the cities, seems to require them to go to the city. That verbiage was changed to allow them to go to the city, or if they still wanted to go to the state for that, they could also do that.
That's correct.
What is that verbiage now?
Mr. Smith has it.
It shall apply to a certified plumbing and natural gas inspector or other designated official from the city or the Arkansas Department of Health, and to obtain a review of plumbing plans to do such work.
So that was it, right?
Yep.
That's it.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Mayor. I'm not opposed to this, but however, is there, other than, sure, delaying it 30 days, 60 days before it takes effect, have we had input from developers, plumbers, et cetera, on this for input. You know, is there a rush to pass it tonight? Should we at least table it for 30 days, just to kind of put it before the whole community and, you know, just to make sure somebody else doesn't find something we need to change on? I don't know. I'm just, you know, a lot of times we're hesitant sometimes to hurry up and pass something in an ordinance form, and I'm not opposed to this, but do we owe it to ourselves to at least table it for 30 days, or not table it, but go to the second reading and then the passage at the second reading, just to say it's at least been presented in time for dialogue, input, et cetera, has been given?
I think that's a fair and a good challenge. Mr. Sedin, do you have a response to that?
Sure. One of the things I'd like to mention, especially because of the COVID-19, is, and again, they're required to, this is not a new requirement. This is not a single-family home that they all of a sudden got to send their plumbing plans or their licensed plumber to us. Typically, this involves commercial plumbing plans, and they've always been required to run those things to the state. Before we issue a permit, we want a letter from the state that says, we hereby approve these sets of plans. What we've run into with this COVID-19 is we've run into a couple jobs, and because of their review process has been delayed, we've been ready to issue a building permit. However, we can't because the review process wasn't complete at the state. So in other words, some of it had to do with everything being done online now, and it bogged down their system. What we felt was if we can move this through an emergency clause, maybe we can expedite some of this. This is to the advantage of the builders. The builders the plumbers and folks that we've talked to in the field, the contractors, they love the idea of it coming to us locally. We thought if we expedited that, we may, I'm not saying for sure, but we may not have some future delays even over the 90 days, just because the whole review process is bogged down at the state.
Again, I'm not opposed to it. I'm just asking from a procedural, point of view.
And that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. We just thought it may actually help them, the contractors, to expedite the permit process. And so we actually proposed the emergency clause.
I mean, would it be fair to say that this doesn't substantially change the way that business is going to be operated? It just gives them another potentially more efficient way to go about operating that business?
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're talking about, there are no more fees. The fees actually gives us an additional revenue stream. The fees come to us, which the state says, use our fees, use our fee report to actually submit those, number one. Number two, that process is expedited for them. But again, remember, there's that provision for them to actually go to the state if they actually want to. And the feedback that we've got so far locally has been positive. So we're talking about this whole time with this consolidation and the new InterGov software and all that. We're talking about figuring out ways to expedite the permit process. And so we believe this is one step in the right direction.
Any other discussion? What is the desire of the council?
Motion to adopt.
I have a motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, I move to enact the emergency clause, the emergency being listed in Section 11. City Council has determined that the need to establish a plumbing plan review by the Russellville Fire Department is urgent in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the city from unsanitary conditions, ...
I do have a motion for the emergency clause. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Brown. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. And that concludes the agenda items for our regular scheduled meeting. At this time, we do have a late agenda item. So I need a motion from the council to consider a late agenda item, to consider a resolution on face mask for Russellville, Arkansas. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, at this point, it may be a moot point.
It is.
Okay. So So I don't, I'm sorry?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Table it. You know what happened? I didn't hear what you changed it.